there's a moment most people miss. A room full of voices, opinions overlapping, everyone trying to be heard. And then there's one person who says nothing. Yet somehow, everyone notices them. In a crowded meeting, ideas were flying rapidly. People spoke with urgency, interrupting, defending, asserting. It felt less like a discussion and more like a competition. In the middle of it all, there was a man sitting quietly at the edge of the table. He didn't rush to speak. He didn't fight for attention. He simply listened. At first, no one paid him much attention, but as the conversation grew louder, more chaotic, something shifted. People began glancing toward him, waiting. And when he finally spoke, just a few calm, deliberate sentences. The room fell silent. No one interrupted. No one dismissed him, because somehow, without trying, he had already earned their respect. This is the paradox of human interaction. Most people believe respect is something you earn through expression, by speaking confidently, asserting your ideas, proving your intelligence. So they talk more, explain more, defend more. But often, the more someone tries to prove their worth through words, the less weight those words carry. Meanwhile, someone else, quieter, more restrained, says very little. And yet, when they do speak, people listen, not because of what they said, but because of how they existed before they said anything at all. The uncomfortable truth is this: respect is rarely given to those who seek it directly. In fact, the more you try to convince people to respect you, the more you signal that you don't already have it. Because human beings are constantly reading beneath the surface, not just your words, but your need, your urgency, your desire to be validated, your subtle attempts to control how others see you. And these signals often speak louder than anything you say. At the core of this dynamic lies a psychological principle often referred to as status signaling. In social environments, people are continuously assessing one another's status, not just in terms of hierarchy, but in terms of internal stability. And one of the strongest indicators of perceived status is non-reactivity. When a person does not rush to speak, does not interrupt, does not over-explain, it creates a subtle impression. This person is not trying to prove anything. And in human psychology, that absence of need is often interpreted as quiet confidence. There's also an element of what psychologists describe as the scarcity effect. When something is less available, it becomes more valuable. Words work the same way. If someone speaks constantly, their voice becomes part of the background. But when someone speaks rarely, each word carries weight. Silence, in this sense, is not emptiness. It is selectivity. Research in social and organizational psychology has consistently shown that individuals who demonstrate controlled speech patterns and active listening are often rated as more competent and authoritative. Studies on impression formation suggest that people who pause before responding are perceived as more thoughtful and intelligent. Similarly, research on power dynamics indicates that those in higher status roles tend to speak less frequently but more deliberately, not because they have less to say, but because they are less driven by the need to fill every silence. In fact, silence itself becomes a form of communication, a signal of composure, of self-regulation, of internal clarity. There is something deeper happening beneath all of this. Because silence, when it is intentional, reflects a certain relationship with oneself. A person who is comfortable being silent is often someone who is not afraid of being overlooked, not afraid of not being immediately understood, not dependent on constant external acknowledgement. And this kind of inner stability is rare. In a world where most people are trying to be seen, heard, validated, the one who doesn't chase attention begins to attract it, not through force, but the contrast. This dynamic shapes how we are perceived in subtle but powerful ways. People who speak too quickly, too often, or too defensively are often unconsciously categorized as uncertain, even if their words are correct, because their behavior suggests something beneath the surface, a need to be believed. On the other hand, those who listen more than they speak, who respond instead of react, who allow space instead of filling it, are often perceived as more grounded, more trustworthy, more in control. And over time, this perception compounds. They are interrupted less. Their opinions are valued more. Their presence carries influence even before they say anything. But there is a nuance here. Silence alone is not enough, because silence can also come from fear, insecurity, or disengagement. And people can sense the difference. The kind of silence that earns respect is not passive. It is intentional. It is the silence of observation, not avoidance. the silence of confidence, not hesitation. In the end, earning respect without speaking is not about staying quiet. It is about removing the need to prove yourself through noise. Because people are not just listening to your words, they are watching how you carry yourself in the absence of them. Your patience, your restraint, your ability to exist without demanding attention. And perhaps that's the deeper truth. Respect is not something you take from a room. It is something that emerges when your presence no longer depends on the room's approval. So sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all.